also with that building in Detroit, when Prabhupada, this is Deva Siddham Mandir, when Prabhupada walked through, he had no money at the time, you know, for this particular project, he had no money. And it was a gorgeous, gorgeous building. In fact, we didn't know what to do with it. There was a painting in the front lobby of all these naked women bathing. So all the sannyasis, they were all, everyone trying to be proper about things. Prabhupada looked at it, turned to the men and said, very nicely done. Then they came to where there was a big polar bear rug, the kind with the head and the teeth and everything. So Srila Prabhupada looked at it and very gingerly took his cane, put the tip of his cane in the mouth and lifted up and looked at the teeth. And very wide-eyed like a child, he turned to Jagadish Maharaj and said, they eat men? And Jagadish Maharaj said, sometimes, Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada put it down and made a wide berth as he walked around the rug, and it was just very sublime. Prabhupada said at one point, the man was asking, I think, $1 something or close to $1 million. Prabhupada said, every room is worth $1 million. In fact, it was even designed, there were 3 archers. They used to have the ballroom dancing, and they had where the orchestra was. There was 2 small arches and a large arch, just like we do for Jagannath, Radhakrishna, and Gaura-Nitai. And even there were carved peacocks, there were lotuses, everything was carved, everything was designed. Prabhupada said, actually, this rich man, Krishna engaged him in building this building for us, and has simply been lying, waiting for us to come pick it up. So Prabhupada was had a vision for the building. So he walked through the whole thing, just like he could pull the money out of his bead bag. Just, price wasn't even an issue, and Prabhupada was talking about this and that. So finally outside there's a sunken garden, and they were sitting in the grotto area, their nice sun, everything was very peaceful. And the man was a very greedy man. He was like a real money grubber guy. You could see the grease on his fingers, practically speaking. So when he sat down, and here was Srila Prabhupada, loved the building, and Prabhupada's, sublime aristocratic nature, that Prabhupada could just write the check. So Prabhupada said, this building is perfect for our purposes. Every room is exquisite. It's exactly what we want. He said, very aristocratic building. So the man was like, could taste the money. And Prabhupada turned to him and said, but we are not aristocrats. He said, we are professional beggars. Therefore, you should give it to us. And I thought the man was going to have a cardiac arrest, at the point. He was like, ah. So Prabhupada actually toyed with him. There's a whole story how Prabhupada toyed with him back and forth. And ultimately, Prabhupada got the building. The man actually tried to cheat us. After we got it, Ambarish gave half the money, I think, and then Lekha Shavanti, Lisa Ruther, gave half the money. And this way Prabhupada was able to, although he had nothing outside of his desire, and Krishna arranged the building and Prabhupada picked it up. And no one could believe the price Prabhupada got for it. In fact, the man, we got a call from a neighbor that after the papers were signed, that the man was stripping the building. He was taking all the mirrors off the walls, all the doorknobs, all the fixtures, all the light, because everything was very opulent. He was stripping whatever he could. So we actually went and stopped him. He had one truck there. And we said, how can you do this? He said, I can't help it. He said, your Swami cheated me. So they told Prabhupada the story later on. That's one of the times Prabhupada said, yes. Prabhupada said, I am a Calcutta boy. So he'd met his match with Srila Prabhupada. There was another time, I didn't personally experience this, but Karando told me the story, because he would come back every morning from the walks. Prabhupada was walking in L.A., in Cheviot Hills, and there was these big houses, and they walked past one house, big house. Prabhupada said, someday we'll have a big house like this for Krishna. The devotee said, Jai Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada walked a little further, and there was a big circular driveway and a big car, big, stretched limo or something. Prabhupada said, someday we'll have a big car like this for Krishna. The devotee said, Jai Prabhupada. So they walked to another house a little further, and out of nowhere this dog came running down the driveway and stopped. And Prabhupada said, someday we'll have a big dog like that for Krishna. The devotee said, Jai Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, you fools, what do you want a big dog for? So not like a parrot, the devotees see in their innocence, This is an Indian professor, and he was saying, it was all one, and Prabhupada was explaining there's a source and there's byproducts. It's not transformation, it's byproducts. And Prabhupada said, if I say cotton ball or cotton shirt, is there a difference? And the man said, cotton ball, cotton shirt, it is. Prabhupada said, if I say cotton ball or cotton shirt, is there a difference? And the man said, cotton, it is. He was going on like this. And Prabhupada, he said it 3 or 4 times. It was a low, Prabhupada would sometimes sit in a room at a low table, and the man was sitting on the other side. Prabhupada reached over, grabbed the man by the shirt, and shook him and said, if I say cotton ball or cotton shirt, is there a difference? And the man, he got it. It wasn't just, he didn't just get it to be polite. Prabhupada actually shook through his, dull cow brain, buffalo brain, and the guy got it. There's a difference, cotton ball and cotton shirt. However, and it was friendly, and the man could do it like this. But after the men left, Prabhupada pointed out, Prabhupada said, this is the special sanction of old men and little children. They can go anywhere, and they can say anything. And said, you cannot imitate. So don't, brahmacharis, don't try this at home. When Prabhupada was, there's a part, after you go through the park and the kind of the museums and everything, there's a part you come through, it's all forest, and it becomes a little quieter. And I'd walked there many times, devotees had walked there, we'd never seen this. When Prabhupada came, all the deer came on both sides of the walkway, there's like a forest on the side, and they walked with us. They'd run ahead, maybe 20 yards ahead, and they would wait. And then Prabhupada would catch up, and they'd run ahead, and they would wait. And they followed us all the way down and all the way back. It happened twice when Srila Prabhupada was there. The only two times he walked. And one of the devotees quoted the Atmarama verse, that even the dull animals can appreciate, And we were thinking, what is the status of Srila Prabhupada? That he's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We were not to, make some sahaja thing, but like Prabhupada, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they could sense here was a pure person, a fearless person. I remember Prabhupada in Los Angeles when I was there, how he was trying to teach us every morning the Sanskrit. It was Sri Upanishad in the mornings in L.A. And, Om Purnamada Purnamidam, like that. And we would stumble along, and nobody would get the verses. They wouldn't. So after some time, like maybe a week, and he would sit back and he would wait for us to say it, and we wouldn't say it, Or we would stumble, and I think Jayatirtha, a couple people were learning. So Prabhupada said, these books I'm writing, he said, they're not just for selling. Prabhupada said, they're for you. You should learn this. So and he went on how we should learn Prabhupada said, like a lawyer knows the law books, we should know. There was another time Prabhupada was reading from Krishna book, and sometimes he would read in the evening, he would add things that aren't in the text. Like he was describing how when Narada Muni comes and warns Kamsa that Kamsa is waiting for the 8th son to be born, so he's letting the other sons go. And Narada Muni was like a catalyst. He wanted to speed up the appearance of Krishna. So Prabhupada was describing. So Prabhupada said that Narada Muni showed him how to count. Narada Muni said, you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But what if you count this way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the first becomes the 8th. Or what if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? In this way, by doing all these things with his fingers, Kamsa became bewildered that any son could be the 8th son, and then he wanted to kill them all. And Tejas told me a story that when Prabhupada came to Delhi, he hadn't been in Delhi for a long time, and they had a reception in the airport. And I think the mayor was there, and so many big life members, and they had a big arti, and they had the Vyasa-san in the airport and everything. Prabhupada came, and he came to sit down, and Tejas was just about to garland Srila Prabhupada. Everyone was there, gathering. Prabhupada said, stop. Prabhupada said, what was, and everyone's listening. Prabhupada said, what was the collection last month? Tejas said some number. Prabhupada said, how much did you send to my book fund? And he gave a number which was 50%. Prabhupada said, begin the RT. That was the first thing Prabhupada said. He wanted to know, he wanted to make sure 50% was going to his book fund. And there was a Caltech professor who introduced himself as a professor from Caltech, and who had studied Vedanta and appreciated that Prabhupada had given a simplistic presentation appropriate for the neophytes in the West. But the further one went into Vedanta, one could understand how form becomes formless, and the whole thing they give. And he, quoted a little bit. He knew a little Sanskrit, he knew a little this and that. And Prabhupada sat. Prabhupada didn't even look at him. He was standing. There was a rug there, and everyone was sitting on the rug, big rug, and this man was standing. Prabhupada didn't even look at him. Prabhupada was just looking at the deity Radha Krishna and chanting. He was Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And the man went on. Prabhupada didn't even look. You could see Prabhupada's noble profile, like a lion. You could just see he was like a lion. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And the man finally ran out of steam, Prabhupada said, are you finished yet? And the man said something, there was like an intimation. The man could see that, maybe he'd gotten into something. Prabhupada turned and Prabhupada said, in this Purana, and in this Veda, and in the Vedanta Sutra, and this Upanishad, and this Samhita. And it was just like hammering a nail into the ground. The man just, it was like body blows. And then finally the man was he was stooped a little bit, and then he was like on his knees, and then finally he was like, if he could have melted into the floor, he would have melted into the floor. And Prabhupada had his hand in his bead bag, and Prabhupada was making point after point after point. And then Prabhupada finally came to a crescendo, and he finished. Prabhupada said, do you have any further question? The man said, Swami, can we have kirtan? Because that was his complaint, that we're just chanting and dancing like sentimentalists. And Prabhupada just, in the devotees, Jai! Prabhupada just transcendentally, the man had seen the light, so to speak. So the temple president was always trying to save money. And he wanted to fry everything in peanut oil. And the devotees, we all wanted ghee and this and that. So the temple presidents used to go up, I think once a week they would go up and have lunch with Srila Prabhupada. There was some arrangement they would meet. So Durlab was his name, and he asked Srila, for Laguna Beach was the temple, he asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, and we told him, we went on like a non-violent, non-cooperation strike. We said, no more peanut oil. And so he said, well, I'm going to ask Srila Prabhupada. So he asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, can we cook in peanut oil? Prabhupada said, isn't that so first class? So later on in the conversation, the man said, Srila Prabhupada. Durlab asked, wove it in again. But what about cooking in peanut oil? Prabhupada said, peanut oil is fifth class. And finally he asked a third time, later on he said, well, Prabhupada, something about peanut oil. Prabhupada said, cook in anything you like. So the temple president heard that, oh, great, I can cook anything I like. So as he was leaving, Prabhupada said, Prabhupada said, I know one thing. Or he said, I know one man, how do you say? He said, I know one man who ate too many pakoras cooked in peanut oil. That was it. I know one man who ate too many pakoras cooked in peanut oil. And so the devotee said, oh, what happened to him? Prabhupada said, he died the next morning. So that was Prabhupada's purport on peanut oil. That more or less went out the window on that one. We were walking along these big houses in Lakeshore Park, Cheviot Hill, in Chicago, and this dog looked like it was half, horse. It was like Marmaduke's older brother. It was this enormous dog, like Aristasura coming to Vrindavan. The ground was shaking, and this huge dog came running down like that. And so, 3 or 4 devotees hid behind cars. A couple devotees hid behind Brahmananda. More or less, everyone just, was on, I don't mean this like it sounds, but more or less was overwhelmed by the temporary bodily concept of life and was of self-preservation. And Prabhupada was really left out sort of in front as the point man. Some people were there, but they were stunned. So everyone was didn't know what to do. And Srila Prabhupada, in his transcendental bravery, he stepped forward, threw his chadar over his shoulder. I was thinking like Krishna, ties his belt before he attacks, fights with the demon. Prabhupada threw his chadar over like that, took his cane and went, hut! And this huge dog just turned, went back like that. The devotees kind of dusted themselves. They were a little embarrassed. We kind of regrouped. And then a little further down the road, another dog came out. And so I forget one sannyasi, somebody tried, hut! And the dog just got madder. And Prabhupada laughed. Prabhupada said, you have to know the science. There was a big statue of an eagle, like a I don't know what, like an American eagle or something. It was commemorating some returning from World War II or something like that. So Prabhupada went out of his way to look at it, and there was a lamb around it or something. It was like some sheep or something. And Prabhupada said that there's a type of bird that flies from one planet to another planet. And Prabhupada said it is so big, it just flies from planet to planet. And it picks up an elephant, will pick it up and then drop it. And it kills the elephant, and then it'll eat the elephant. What can I say? Prabhupada said it. We were there on the walking front just because he saw this eagle statue. In New Vrindavan, Prabhupada was sitting out on the lawn, and I was the temple president in Ann Arbor in those days, so temple presidents, we got to sit there. And some man had come. He was a neighbor. And West Virginia, right? Almost heaven. Well, that almost is in capital letters, I assure you. But this man was a simple man, and he showed up, and he was a retired judge or something, and he heard that Prabhupada was there. He pulled his pickup truck, got out of his pickup truck, walked right up to Srila Prabhupada, said, got something for you, Swami, and plopped this grocery bag on Prabhupada's lap. And Prabhupada, on one hand, he was very large, he had a presence that he could fill the whole room. But in reality, you're close to him, Prabhupada was not actually that very tall, and he was very delicate, actually. So we had Prabhupada sitting there, and this big grocery bag was on Prabhupada's lap. He just plopped it right there. So Prabhupada reached inside. It was full of vegetables. Prabhupada pulled out this zucchini. Prabhupada, he showed it to everyone. Prabhupada said, when someone brings you something from their garden, that is love. So the man with this big rough hillbilly, had, and when Prabhupada said that, the guy got like tears in his eyes. He couldn't believe it, There was, when Prabhupada would sit in his garden, we planted, one of the reasons I went to Laguna Beach was we jackhammered up the back of the patio and made a garden there for Srila Prabhupada, and I would do some gardening there after it was set up. So Prabhupada would sit in his garden and he would read in the afternoon. He would come in the evenings. We planted some jasmines underneath Prabhupada's window. It's actually nice. You could hear that karate in the back, but with that open window, the jasmine would come in the window there. And so Prabhupada would come out after it had gotten cool, and he would sit and he would read with the sannyasis and temple presidents and stuff. He would read. And we would all go upstairs, which I guess now is whatever that room is. Maybe use it for plays or storage or stuff like that. We would look out the windows into the garden, and you'd be like a whole gallery of devotees. And Gargamuni would look up and he'd say, get up, So he got real heavy with us that we couldn't be up there. Look, he was bothering Srila Prabhupada. So finally he broke us of our habits and no one would look out that window. So the first day that no one was there, Prabhupada looked up and said, where are the devotees? So they said, well, Gargamuni said, they shouldn't be there. Prabhupada, go get them. So all we would all sit and look out the windows and Srila Prabhupada in the garden. Like, Prabhupada liked it, the devotees were there. So he was looking through his paper. They showed Prabhupada the paper about the moonshot. And on the front, one small step for man, one large step, for mankind, or whatever the propaganda line was. So Prabhupada looked at that, Prabhupada was flipping through, and then Prabhupada got to about the 4th or 5th page, and there was a whole thing about how taxes were going to have to go up for the moonshot to pay for the space. Prabhupada said, this is their real business. That they've made some scam, and just to squeeze money out of the innocent public. So Prabhupada said, this is their real business is squeezing money, and this is just some sideshow on the side like that. So Prabhupada's comment on the moonshot. Bahulasa was encouraging Srila Prabhupada about that they had this, they'd set up in front of Berkeley, UC Berkeley, they had a prasadam stand, and they were selling Bengali sweets. And he was going on about this, and Tripurai was there, and Prabhupada stopped, and Prabhupada asked him, he said, how many books did you sell? What was the story? Because Tripurai told him, and some amazing figure. Prabhupada said, this is the real Bengali sweet, Chaitanya Charitamrita. That Prabhupada, but he turned to Akendra, Rupanuga's son, who I guess was maybe 7 or 8. He said, Akendra, lead kirtan. So little Akendra, he plays key with that, Nama Om and Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Hare Krishna like that. When he was done, Prabhupada called him over, reached into his dhoti, and gave him a $10 bill, $5, $10, something, said, buy yourself a red fire engine. And Prabhupada said, children like the color red. But later on, some man was saying to Srila Prabhupada, and one devotee, Prabhupada, when I joined, I was only 18 and a half, and I made so many promises, and it was easy for me to follow the principles. Now it's so many years later, and my life has changed. He was going on, and Prabhupada slammed his hand down and said, then why did you promise? He said, only an animal can't keep his promise. So heavy.